morning, everybody. This is Viveka from the Nourish Caveman and the Healing Foods Method. And I am back live here, finally back in my office and sharing this video with you with hopefully some good connectivity. I have been on vacation and in Northern California and in Oregon, where the internet was pretty much non-existent, and I'm finally back home, and thank you for internet. So this morning I'm finally back live, and I would like to talk with you about a very interesting topic, a topic that is very dear to me because it connects out to a lot of different conversations. In this Facebook Lives, I've been talking a lot recently about my carnivore experiment and my carnivore diet, and everything that has been going on with me personally through this experiment, through the diet, and researching more and talking more about this kind of new ramification and development and evolution of the keto paleo diet. Today, I want to go back to one of the staples of nutrition and one of the topics that I encounter in my practice on a daily basis with my patients. So I would like to talk to you about caffeine and sugar, which is a really, well, especially sugar is a big topic when it comes to ketogenic diets, because this is one of the things that we need to pretty much eliminate completely from our diet and lifestyle when we embark into a keto paleo life. So I think that a lot of you come from a standard American diet, and a lot of I come from an Italian background, so my upbringing was a little different than what is the real situation here in the United States. And just the more I live here, the longer I live here, the more patients I work with, the more people I know and meet and share their experience with me, the more aware I become about the situation and the repercussions of the situation, of the upbringing, especially your upbringing in a diet environment that entails high sugar and sometimes high caffeine, especially these days with young kids and energy drinks, and anywhere from early teens to throughout teenage and college. And in the past, especially maybe 40-50 years ago, when refined sugar really made a boom after World War II, a lot of people's diet changed, and our diet, your diet here in America, wasn't here yet, but hey Puerto Rico, good morning Raquel. So the diet changed, and it became a carbohydrate heavy, sugar heavy diet for a lot of people. So I don't want to go too deep into the physiology of this, but just to give you a little tiny bit of a background of what happens when you have a high intake of sugar, especially more than caffeine, is sugar drives insulin, it drives blood sugar, of course. So you eat sugar, your blood sugar spikes, then insulin spikes. Insulin tries to put away the sugar in the blood, into the muscles, into the organs to be utilized, and then mostly the higher the spike, the bigger the valleys, or the deeper the valleys. So a crash ensures. So we start developing what I call the blood sugar roller coaster, and this roller coaster of high and low, it's not just driven by sugar, but also by stimulants, especially caffeine. Chocolate as well. Chocolate can be a tricky one because it could contain high sugar and also some caffeine. So it's kind of like the drug of choice for stimulant because it gives you that double whammy. Now, why do we get into that? Why do we get into this blood sugar caffeine roller coaster, stimulant roller coaster? And how does it affect us, not just on a blood sugar level, but on a wider level? Because what counts for me is always, how does it impact your life and your lifestyle? So what is the significance of this roller coaster in your daily life? And so first of all, let's talk about why. Why do we get there? Well, one of the reasons I just touched upon, and is that when we are young and we are fed a bunch of sugar, then we get set up. We get set up for having that roller coaster, and that is a self-perpetuating cycle, because the more up and downs we get, the more we crave sugar. The insulin crashes, make us want more carbohydrates, more sugar, and then as we crash, then we want energy, so we reach out for what gave us energy in the first place, which is sugar and then caffeine. So this is one of the ways, especially from childhood. It also sets up insulin resistance, which is nowadays much talked about in a lot of different environments, not just ketogenic, but I've been reading some articles, interesting articles recently about insulin resistance being the true culprit for cardiovascular disease. That's some food for thought right there for you. So first reason is we get set up as children by eating high sugar diets, and children have a higher tolerance for carbohydrates because they're kind of like more of a blank slate, unless that happened in utero already and they are born already with insulin resistance. That's a kind of a different story. But so as children, we are very active, metabolism is high, so usually there is a good tolerance. But what is the amount of sugar consumed? And then what if, like in current days, modern days, children consume energy drinks and they get that really high sugar, high caffeine, like wham, to their system? It sets you up for the roller coaster, and it's fun, right? Fun but not fun. It's fun when you're up high and then you crash down, and it's not so fun anymore, and then you are like a zombie and you need to reach for some more of the same stuff. Second reason, as this progresses and we're more into adulthood, and now we're like, been kind of coming along this path of like sugars and caffeine up and downs, then we start affecting our endocrine system. So our adrenals get involved in there. Our adrenals get compromised by a constant stimulation. The adrenals, by the way, I don't know how many of you guys know this, but they're heavily involved in blood sugar regulation. And cortisol is involved in blood sugar regulation as they're involved in the hormonal cascade that helps us secrete insulin as well. As the endocrine system is connected, interconnected, and very differently than what your doctor might know or think, or even be able to give you feedback on, all the endocrine glands work together and they influence each other or suppress each other in different ways. So when we talk blood sugar, not a lot of people think immediately adrenals. A nutritionist will think that, but also when we talk blood sugar and adrenals, do people think thyroid right away? Or do they think your sex hormones or your estrogen production? See, everything is connected. And, I'm a specialist in hormone rebalancing. So for me, that always pops up in my brain. How will this affect your endocrine system? What's the repercussions? But the topic that I wanted to talk about here is anxiety. And we haven't really touched on that yet, but we're talking also about brain chemical regulation and serotonin regulation. But also we're talking about dopamine reward and reward behaviors. So this is a very complex subject, and it has multiple layers that we need to look at if we want to truly understand the workings of this machinery, or like the workings of our body, so that we can get out of these vicious cycles and we can be empowered and get out of it and recreate more positive, more healthy behaviors for ourselves. So what happens is, like, you're set up already for, insulin resistance, and you've been on the roller coaster of sugar and caffeine, and your adrenals are getting taxed. Your adrenals are getting tired. And what does that mean? You know that in conventional modern medicine, nobody really talks about your adrenal. Most doctors, they don't believe that adrenal fatigue even exists. They don't see adrenal dysregulation until it gets all the way at the end of the spectrum into like Cushing's. So until your adrenals are completely failing and saying goodbye, your doctor will not even realize that they need support, and they're screaming loud and clear because they need some help. So As your adrenals are screaming, what you do is you don't know better, and then your first immediate reaction is to reach for more stimulants to help. That will affect this other cascade of brain chemicals, and it will affect these addictive behavior pathways as well that are based on dopamine rewards. And sugar and caffeine can be dopamine triggers, and they will affect those rewards behaviors. So you will be even deeper into this vicious cycle and not able to get out. Now, what happens when you crash? So sometimes when you're high, it feels good for a minute, you get that rush and you're like caffeinated, you know, there is billions of emojis and things and coffee cups and t-shirts. I don't get up without coffee, don't talk to me until I have coffee. You know, it's all about this social culture of caffeinating and sugar, and that's socially acceptable, it's okay. But what happens, you know, when you wake up and you are like absolutely untreatable and you don't like yourself a lot and you're grumpy and you're just like sometimes flatline depressed, and then you add the stimulant and suddenly you feel better, you know. But what happens 3 hours later, you know, is that you crash back down and then you start feeling the anxiety. And one thing about, I want to make a parenthesis here about research. I've been looking at some research and finding that a lot of the research on PubMed that, you know, I have my own opinions on research, but just touching on it here, okay, is done on rats. So it's rats, female rats, male rats, offer this sucralose solution or caffeinated thing, you know, and like, how do the rats react? But guess what? In case you didn't notice, we're not rats, we're humans. And for me, as a holistic practitioner, all the greatest research done on rats is still done on rats. We're humans. So what I base my conclusions personally is clinical practice. First of all, is my own experience as a human body with the substances, meaning caffeine, sugar, and the feelings that they induce. But also I see this in real patients in real life with real behaviors. And that's why sometimes it takes me a while to come up with like these videos or, you know, talk to you about it, because I watch it and I work with it and, you know, I address it and I see the changes happening in my patients, in real women, real men, mostly women, because I work about 95% with women patients. And I see it and it's real and I get feedback from them. Like, you know, a lot of people come to me and they have anxiety, high anxiety sometimes. And guess what? They're medicated for it sometimes. So medications for depression and anxiety, they're one of the #1 prescribed medications aside from thyroid medications, but antidepressants are big. And antidepressants are bad because once you tamper with your brain chemistry, okay, and here, parenthesis again, I'm not talking about true mental illness, okay? There is a place where true deep chemical imbalances that are not being able to be corrected by diet and lifestyle need medication. So aside from those cases, what I find is that we all know Americans are over medicated, and that's because it's kind of a quick fix. It's also a quick fix that makes a lot of money to some people. And your doctor, unfortunately, is not trained to prescribe or to offer any other tools. Your doctor also gets paid for prescribing medication. In the interview with Dr. Ken Berry, which you can go look in my blog, The Nourished Caveman, we had a great conversation about that. And Dr. Ken was really helpful in giving some good tips on how to work with your doctor when it comes to medication and getting you off medication, and giving, you know, some really excellent ideas, because the doctors do make more money when you put you on meds. But there is an alternative to that, and like, go look at that video, it's a longer conversation. Anyway, so your doctor doesn't have many more tools than the pad and the pen and the pill. And so what do we do? Is that possible to change those behaviors, those patterns, without using medication? I think is absolutely 100% possible. And the way we do it is with diet and with lifestyle. So removing the stimulants, caffeine and sugar, especially sugar, is the first step. So caffeine is a little bit different than sugar because physiologically it has a different reaction cascade, but the sugar definitely is a big one. And I feel that, you know, the anxiety most of the times is driven by the blood sugar imbalances, and then caffeine comes on top and exacerbates it. So when we're able to remove sugar and make our blood sugars stable again, not just going like this, but we really start to stabilize that blood sugar. And then in addition to that, if we want to really have some benefits, we activate that dormant metabolism of ketosis, which is a super stable and steady energy fuel. It's also really great energy source for your brain because, again, it's a stable energy. When your brain runs on glucose and glucose keeps dropping, your brain will like keep dropping and like, you know, getting that signal as well, like it's not running smoothly. And then you do get this problem like depression, sugar drops, anxiety, sugar drops, too much sugar, anxiety, depression, you know, here we go, up and down, back and forth. When you run on ketones, it's different because then you run on fat. It's a long-term energy source. Good morning, Margaret. Thank you for watching. And we are able to maintain steady, stable brain function. So one of the side effects of being keto adapted, I see it in my patients over and over again, is that their mood improves and they're able to get off meds. Of course, with the help of your doctor. I don't recommend that you do that yourself. And I am not qualified to take you on or off any medication. I'm just a nutritionist. But hopefully with the education that I can provide, and thank you for the feedback, Margaret. That's great. So, you know, with modifying your diet and running on ketones mostly, aside from sugar, what's happening is that you are able to provide a solid base where the medication is not needed anymore. And now we are reversing to your body being able to function by design as it was designed. Because don't forget, and I've really dipped way deep into that with the carnivore diet and the carnivore experiment, is that by design, we are designed to run on protein and fat, mostly fat and then protein. You know, carbohydrates by evolutionary design were not widely available. Our bodies, 2 million years of evolution versus 10,000, 8,000 years of agriculture, where we started developing these high carb and high sugar content foods, was not adapted for that. So there was a whole adaptation that happened to try to handle that increased sugar and carb in the last 8,000 years. Plus, now it's like 40, 50 years where refined sugar appeared. And that 2 million years, 40, 50 years, that is like, you know, it's a big difference. So that just should be food for thought for you. And seeing like, you know, when people come to me and tell me like, but humans need sugar, we need carbohydrates, we need fuel for energy, and that powers us. And, you know, if I don't have the sugar, then I really cannot function. Well, you know what? Glucose has its place. And we are able to manufacture glucose in our own body. And that's why it has its place. But that's also why we are able to make it ourselves. We break down triglycerides. We break down protein. We make glucose. It's gluconeogenesis. So, you know, that is why we are able to make it ourselves, because it wasn't very available before. And now is extremely available. So I hope that this conversation just gave you a little bit of an idea of where this kind of roller coaster leads you, and how possible ways to get off the roller coaster. So for me, a keto paleo lifestyle is a big way to get off the roller coaster and become more sustainable, closer to our genetic design, working towards our optimal state of health, which is my goal for myself. Number one, you know, I'm always trying to do that the best I can. and also for my patients. And for everybody, my readers, you don't have to be my patient. You can just watch my video, read my blog. The information is there. That's what I want to do, is provide you with that information. And I am here as a practitioner as well to give you the extra support for those of you that have some real challenges where you can't fix it by yourself anymore. There's sometimes it happens that we have just gone a little too deep or a little too far into the dysfunction, and what we know how to do, it just, not really working anymore. We need an expert. We need somebody to help us figure stuff out. And I am here for that as well, as a holistic practitioner, trying to look at all the correlations of this lifestyle and for health. And I'm not, somebody told me recently that keto is a dogma. For me, keto is not a dogma. Just like as carnivore is not a dogma. And like, it's just an experiment. Ultimately, you guys, what we need to do is figure out what works for you. And what works for you individually. And that's the way I work. Differently than maybe a lot of other people, but I work very in depth. And this is what I share with you. And luckily, I do have a clinical practice with patients. And what I glean from there, I'm able to share with my public, with my audience, so that hopefully it will be helpful for you as well in your journey to optimal health. If there are any questions, this will be a good time to ask them right now. You can post them here. And I know that Cindy, let me scroll and see, adrenals are taxed, but blood test came back normal. There you go. That's exactly what I was talking about, Cindy, that blood test came back normal because your adrenals are still alive. They're not dead yet. That means that blood work just checks certain levels of dysfunction. There is a whole spectrum before we get to the level where it will show on the blood work. So I feed on sugar for a lift. I need caffeine to get up. Yeah, so I'm glad that you shared this little testimonial with us. It's really precious because this is real life. That's what happens. And Cindy, I hope that this conversation was helpful for you to put things in perspective. And so if you have any other question, you guys, this is a good time to ask them. Otherwise, you can watch this video later. It will be posted on YouTube, and then it will be on the blog this week, The Nourished Caveman, where all my posts end up. It's kind of the big compendium. So please feel free to follow my blog or follow my YouTube channel. And one of my assistants say, you need to mention your book in your videos, do it. Okay, so I have a cookbook. It's called the Keto Paleo Kitchen, and I find it a great way to transition into keto paleo. I try to make it as easy as possible. It might not be completely entry level. Maybe it's already like one step into keto paleo, but I'm always here if you need any further help with that. I also have meal plans, whatever I can help to support you at the different levels of commitment that you are at. Not everybody is totally committed to make a giant step into like changing your life. Sometimes all you need is a little change, Cindy, my practice is the world. I have a virtual practice. I work with, every country pretty much in the world. I have patients worldwide. And I do my consults on the phone and sometimes Skype. And I reach everywhere. That's the beauty of internet. Thank you, internet. All right, guys. Well, happy Tuesday. I'm back. Hopefully next week back here, 9 a.m. And then I'm going to Italy on the 15th of August to see my mama. And I've, it's going to be my birthday, so my 50th birthday, oh my God. I'm going to be in Italy for about 3 weeks. We'll figure out how to do these Facebook Lives. Hi, Deb. Is there a way to satisfy the sugar cravings in the transition? Yes. My go-to choice is 2 things. Some fat bombs that are sweet. So sweet fat bombs, keto treats, it's the first step. And as you want to wean yourself from the flavor sweet also, because that triggers insulin and triggers especially the dopamine reward, then we want to switch to protein and kind of parallel. So we still keep some treats, keto treats, we make them keto. So we do sugar substitutes like stevia or like Lakanto, sometimes a swerve. That's a good transition. If your gut can take it, do it. And then increasing the protein. So the meat for me has been a big part of it. I'm sorry I'm jumping all over the place, but my back gets sore if I sit still and I'm standing here. So protein and meat is a great way to help with the sugar cravings because it is broken down for glucose easier than fat. And so it will burn into glucose if you need that glucose, if you're not fully keto adapted, but it's a slower process than eating sugar. So it's like little steps, you know, we go from the sugar to the protein, the keto treats, and then eventually more fat and more protein until we're able to completely wean out. All right, guys, well, better get to work here, more work, and start my day at my practice. So thank you so much for watching. Again, follow me, please. That'd be cool to have you as my audience. I'm here to help, and have a wonderful day.